In this video, I'd like to welcome you to join me on a boat ride down the Erie Canal in upstate New York. And along the way, we will be getting out of the boat and we will be exploring some of the falls in the Finger Lakes region. So first I'd like to talk about the engineering marvel itself. I found a video describing the historical record of the construction of the Erie Canal. I'll just play a little bit of it for you, then I'll put the link in the description.
By many accounts, the Erie Canal is considered the definitive engineering marvel of the 19th century. Being a 363-mile waterway through the New York wilderness, it was a crucial transport artery for over 50,000 people. Yet when it was first proposed, the federal government deemed the idea too ambitious. Hence, the task would fall to the state, which went on to accomplish construction by sheer manpower. This is the story of the Erie Canal. I'm your host, Ryan Sokash, and you're watching It's History.
Yes, it is history. You might want to watch that video in its entirety. Now what I'd like to do is just walk you through some visuals as we make our way along the canal. And what I wanted to do is actually start with Niagara Falls. Here's a photo of Niagara Falls. And I want you, as we go through this video, I want you to keep an eye on sort of what we're looking at as far as where the buildings and the rock cliffs and rock faces blend and where the line is drawn. I would suggest, here you have very interesting looking parts here. My suggestion, and I suggested this in previous videos, is what we're looking at is that line between what's natural and what's man-made is blurred, and you'll see that as we move along the canal here into the Finger Lakes. I'm still in Niagara Falls. We'll move on to Buffalo. And I've got some, of course, I've got some buildings for you to check out in this video. I could have easily dive into any of these towns along the way and pulled out a lot more old world videos or old world buildings for you. Excuse me. But I'm going to try to stick to the canal. So our first stop is in Lockport. Here we are in Lockport. I have a lot of modern day photos too as well for you. And as we move through these, again, keep an eye on the stonework. And you'll see a lot of this as we stroll through the region. Very ruinous, I would say. Interesting here, corner, ruins. And some cave work going on as well. And the natural formations, or what we call the natural formations, having this very similar horizontal, almost looking like bricks, but to a point where we can't recognize them anymore. We have these buildings built right on the edge of the canals. I do contend as well, I see a lot of concrete covered canal edges, and I contend that a lot of them were coated, and you'll see that in a later photo. And what's underneath them is the stonework still. And we move on a little further to Medina. Got a nice culvert here. A culvert road, only road under the Erie Canal in Ripley's Believe It or Not. Culvert was built in 1823, we're told here. This culvert, 1823, 200 years old now. And looking none the worse for wear, I would say. And you'll see a lot of these types of formations in this. I want you to keep it in mind, and I want you to remember the stonework that we see along the way. And the narrative too of these canals rolling and flowing over existing rivers, and the amount of aqueducts in the region is just, it's incredible. Onto Albion. Let's take a look at our map. So Medina in here somewhere, onto Albion. And like I said, no shortage of these stone buildings in this region. Onto Holly, no? This one, Buttermilk Creek in the Finger Lakes area. We'll get more to Finger Lakes shortly. Like I said, no shortage of what you might almost call megalithic. Not quite, but these are large stonework. Getting pretty close to the megalithic here. This one at Lock 52 of the canal. Looking like pictures from the 60s. This one really jumped out at me here. This looking like a single block. Could be wrong, maybe I'm not seeing a seam, but so this stonework here is really something else. And it really is a feat of engineering, no question about that. And now we have moved on to Rochester, and I had compiled all sorts of photos of Rochester and intended to make a video, and I probably still will, just based on Rochester. But you'll see a couple in here, and again I want you to look at the situation here and where the natural and the man-made meet, and I want you to try to define that line. Very difficult. Have a look at how these buildings sit right on the water. We've got buildings going across the bridge here. You can see the archways filled in. So really not something you would expect to see. And I think that the explanation for this, historical explanation for this, is, for lack of a better term, weak sauce. And I would love to visit Rochester. Looking very ruined, and that industrial feel going on here. Much like Niagara Falls at the beginning. And again, we have a canal on top of a river. You see the stonework here. Just the library. All built-in infrastructure, stonework all built in as part of the underlayer along the water's edge. And it's funny when you watch that video in particular, he talks about how they weren't able to get funding to build this federally, and so they had to do it, and I think it was Senator Clinton, no, not that Senator Clinton, who helped kick off the project. There's a few tidbits in there, like they were getting a little tight on cash on the construction, so a lot of the landowners along the way basically broke the bank to help fund it, despite it being hailed as an absurd project. And then at some point they had a shortage of workers, and it was the Irish immigrants that came and saved the day, and they became masterful with the black powder and blasting through the Niagara escarpment things of that nature. So the story, as it goes on, feeling a lot more far-fetched, and I have trouble believing these stories that we're told. This is in the park in Rochester, and I think it's interesting and telling. You get some of this hideous modern art, they're calling it. I wouldn't call it art. And they call it the seat of forgetting and remembering, so I found that very fitting. What are we supposed to forget? Well, I think we know. I think we're a species with amnesia, and we are waking up to something we haven't been able to see for quite some time. And now we're having a little stopover. We're going to get out of our boat and we're going to go explore some of the falls in the Finger Lakes area. And if we look on the map here, we've come along this way, stopped in at Rochester, and we've come down here. And you have here a series of lakes, what are known as the Finger Lakes. I've never been here. If you've been in this area or familiar with any of this area, please share with me your stories, things you've seen over your time. Especially things that make you go, I like those things. Like this. I mean, if that doesn't make you go, I don't know. I don't know what I can do for you. Yeah. So a lot of stonework here in the Finger Lakes area. This one I always find interesting. I've seen it before. You get these 90-degree lines. Very interesting in the rock face. Another bridge, and this one I wanted to show you as well because I want you to have a look at the rock work here and how similar it looks to what we call the natural rock work around. This one also giving you a really good idea. Here's a bit of a pathway, and then we have what we're looking at, like a brick wall, and where does that stop and start? Difficult to tell. It's starting to almost look like it just melted and went blah. That's how I see that. Didn't always see it that way, but that's how I'm starting to see things. So, and again, make of it what you will. I just wanted to bring you the visuals. This one really struck me. Straight that is. And the layering too. Layers, layers. Very flat looking. Almost a bit of an arch look there. Again, the layering. Man-made, natural, hard to tell, hard to decipher which is which. Very interesting area. I thought this one looked like an arch. This one looking, well, we know that there's a 90 there. We might say that's man-made, that's man-made, that's all natural, that's natural, just happens to be. It's really hard to define, isn't it? Hard to explain. Just wanted to share with you. All in the Finger Lakes region. Jumping back to Rochester, you've got a door in the side of the cliff. I'll say that again. We've got a door in the side of a cliff. Like to know what's in there. Finger Lakes region again. On to Palmyra. Let's have a look at our map. Oh, there we are. Alright, we'll try and speed it along. We gotta get to the end here. Alright, back to the megastones. Here's a good visual that I was talking about. What I think is the I mean, I'm sure under the guise of repairs, maybe a need for repairs, but we have like a coating, concrete coating or topping on top of the blockwork here. And not the first time we've seen water flowing through the underside of a structure. And I guess we're to assume that building these big stone arches is run of the mill. You find them all over the place here. No biggie to make these. That's why if you tried to make a bridge like this these days, you wouldn't even be able to find someone who could figure out how to do that, I would suspect. You'd have a lot of trouble. It's the Richmond Aqueduct. Aqueducts, right? In northern New York State. Some of the names of the towns and cities here as well as we move forward are very old world looking. This one, jumping back to Rochester again, I do want to highlight what we have going on here. And this is not the same cave in the cliff that we saw earlier, this is a different one. But look at, are these windows in the cliff? Is anyone from Rochester or been there? Can they tell me, verify? Because I couldn't find much else on this. That's curious, very curious, that one. Alright, just another aqueduct, whatever, no biggie. And another. And look at how impeccable the stonework is here. Look how they weave into the arch stones. And these guys, they know what they're doing. This thing, what, is supposed to be brand new, this technology here at the time? Old photo. Doesn't look new to me. That trolley looks like it's been running for a good while. Port Byron region, this is. Yeah, but it's just under the building now. We find them everywhere. Anyone could do it. This might have been the work of some small children whose fathers and grandfathers were building arches all over the place. Alright, on to Syracuse. Syracuse. Whew. What a city this is. Old World City, Syracuse. City Hall. Of course, 1895, late 1800s, they whipped this thing up. So they say. Yeah, Syracuse. And if this photo doesn't give you a sense of Old World and the subject of my videos, I don't know what I can do for you. If you look at this and you can easily explain this with the historical narrative that we've been given, I suggest you enter the Olympics under the category of mental gymnastics. Because that's some serious stretching. No biggie. Easy to do. All sorts of cones and spires. Now we go on to Rome. No, not Rome, Italy. Rome, New York. The Delta Dam in Rome. I couldn't find a lot on this either. But have a look at the infrastructure here. Wish I had a better photo and some better resolution. Still Rome, the Bellamy Harbor Park. On to Utica. Of course, Utica must have an armory. Like most of the cities along the way here. Have that heavy industrial narrative with the big stacks. Really take that in and try to understand what kind of expertise you would need to build that. What kind of knowledge and expertise. This is not piecemeal work we were dealing with here. Alright, on to Little Falls. This is the Beardsley Castle. Not a great photo, but you do have some evidence of this bulging rock, which I contend is heat damage. Seen it in other areas, many other areas. This is the mausoleum, the Beardsley Mausoleum. Yeah, just into the ground. And back to what we're familiar with, this building's right on the edge of a canal. There's a bit of an archway there. Here's the big lock at the Little Falls. Lover's Leap. Interesting building here. Love to see a higher res of that one as well. And again, you have this old dilapidated arches. Arches everywhere. Why not? This is the Overlook Mansion. I think that one was used in some Stephen King novels, as far as I know. Could be wrong. And more ruined arches. Why not? Just dime a dozen, right? Easy to make. This one, interesting. The old aqueducts. And don't forget, every small town needs a fancy Masonic hall. Just make sure you hide your hand. This from the Herkimer House. That was fitting. Speaking of hidden hands. On to Amsterdam. No, not Netherlands. We are still in New York. And, of course, you need an armory. Schenectady? Schenectady? Apologies if I got that wrong twice, even. The Old Scotia Bridge. Have a look at this. Not much I could find on this. A covered bridge. These look old. I'm telling you. This does not make sense to me. A covered bridge. Rexford Aqueduct. Look at the perfection here. Look at the perfection. A computer program couldn't drop something more perfect than that. Gotta have your armories, right? On to Troy. Getting a sense of the architecture. That is really something special up here. Really something special. Nothing new here. Playing around with red bricks. So a little bit of Troy, New York, and we've seen this in previous videos as well. On to Albany. Let's wrap up here. The state capital, as far as I know, I'm told. And again, you get these nice stone supports, canals. And here's a rendering of the state capital. And here's the state capital as it stands these days. So, quite a contradiction. Was this ever made in this fashion? Did somebody just use their imagination? Or is it a depiction? I'm inclined to believe that we're looking at a depiction of something that existed. And a lot of these old sketches are pawned off as the work of someone's imagination. And final photo, just a little taste of the interior of the state capitol in Albany. And I don't know how much I need to say, except for look at the arches, repeating themes on the interior. Serious detail. And as I look at some of these photos, I wonder, whose depictions are we looking at built into these buildings? So I thank you for joining me on this little boat ride and short hike. I hope it's raised some eyebrows, maybe raised some questions. Either way, the visuals are stunning. Thanks for joining me.